life right, cause it can't miss. All about the game, that's a cold switch. Serving up the truth, call it ruthless. Tune in and get your fix from Blake and Vish Sports.
He got one target last night, caught it, 6 yards. Has generally looked lost returning punts. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what he was trying to do with the ball bouncing around in the on the grass, but it was like Kyle Williams vibes. And then he kicked it into the end zone. So I don't know where his head's at right now. But it also seems like, I don't know. What's your take on this, man? I know you were watching the television copy and they said stuff that I didn't hear.
Last night, the television broadcast gave us the most information about Brandon Aiyuk that we have gotten in 6 weeks. I know he was never in the doghouse. If I had a nickel for every Brandon Aiyuk take I heard, and he was never in the doghouse, blah, 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 all of that. But Chris Collinsworth went out of his ways to say, I wouldn't say he's in the doghouse, but Kyle Shanahan is frustrated with his production. And Al Michaels said, to quote Kyle Shanahan, he put it pretty frankly, I love the kid, but he's got to start grinding. Those were the exact words. Then Rodney Harrison
has to start grinding like River Craycraft.
In the post game, I thought he had a great quote, and he talked about John Lynch, and John Lynch basically, he made a public statement about Brandon Aiyuk and about how he's not where the 49ers would like him to be. In his bye-week interview with Matt Mayoko, and Rodney Harrison basically said, he said it in the nicest terms possible, but he killed it. He said, I love John Lynch, but this is not how you handle a situation. You drafted this guy really high because you believe in him. You do not criticize him publicly. You keep that in-house. You bring him in. You tell him you got to be better, but I still believe in you, and we're going to continue to get him the ball because you got to empower that player. So those are two mistakes. I don't know there's different ways to handle
empowering Aiyuk, what would you say he's doing?
They're basically right now, they're publicly challenging Aiyuk. And there's two different ways to do it. Some players might respond to the challenge. Some players might need the coddling. We don't know which one Aiyuk fits in right now. This is exactly
what they did with Dante Pettis, is it not? And it didn't work with him.
Yes.
And now he's slowly kind of cobbling his career back together. He had a decent game yesterday for the Giants. I'm not saying he's going to work out, but it seems like the Niners' approach isn't helpful. And they've had a negative effect on young wide receivers in the past.
And this just, it's going to be a Kyle Shanahan-centric show, and we're talking about Aiyuk here. But one of the biggest issues I have with Kyle Shanahan, and I talked about it last week, even when I was the positive Kyle Shanahan person, is the inability to assess value. And this wide receiver situation just highlights, it epitomizes to the T this regime's inability to assess value. They have used 12 draft picks in the last 5 years on wide receivers. They have one good wide receiver on their roster. That is pathetic. Kyle Shanahan is supposed to know the receiver position better than anybody. When you trade up for a player, when you trade up for Dante Pettis and you have issues with, I guess, his work or how he's working, and you challenge him, you should be aware of what he's like mentally and what kind of coaching he takes to before you trade up for him. You should be aware of these things.
Some people need the stick. He just goes stick 100% of the time. Like, I don't know.
You should be aware of these things. You should be aware of these things before, in what 98% of people were quoted saying as the greatest receiver draft ever. There's 15 good wide receivers in this draft, and you trade up for the receiver that's going to go fifth. Not Jamar. You didn't trade up for a Jamar Chase or an AJ Green or a Julio Jones. You traded up for another one of these very good receivers who fits within all of these guys. And now you're complaining about him grinding, but you should be aware of this.
I was talking to Mr. Roscoe. You know Mr. Roscoe. Everyone knows Mr. Roscoe's on Twitter. He's a big Niner guy. He's a big Pac-12 guy too. Loves USC, and he was like, Michael Pittman was better in college than Brandon Aiyuk. Aiyuk had one good year at Arizona State. Pittman was carrying that USC team. The Niners could have had Pittman. They traded up.
T. Higgins was better too.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no reason to do. I mean, I like Aiyuk, and I think he could definitely get his career back on track. I do like him, but they didn't need to do that, and now they're compounding the problem.
Yeah, because it goes back to their inability to assess value. And I think we brought up the name, and we evoked the name that's the worst name of all to evoke. But I think one thing Trent Baalke had under control, he was not a good GM, I'm not here to defend him, is he knew how to assess value. He loved Navarro Bowman in the 2010 draft, but he didn't take Navarro Bowman in the third round. He did take him in the third round, but he didn't stay put and take him. he knew that he could trade down 10 picks and still get the same player that he liked. The
Right, because he was
49ers just
groomed in player personnel departments. He knows the industry. He's not good at, he's not great, but he knows what you do and you don't do. I mean, the Niners are run by a coach and an announcer and a cap
and
guy.
they just throw asses
Whatever. Yeah, whatever.
left
It's
and
all right.
right center to get
Yeah. Kyle wants us to do it. He says he'll make it work.
I mean,
Okay.
I mean, the Brandon Aiyuk situation, it continues to be bizarre. Has he not played as well as he did last year? Sure, there's some validity to that. Do the 49ers still need him this year? Yes, because their offense is basically Debo or bust. It's so bad to the point that I tweeted out yesterday after Debo's touchdown, in tongue-in-cheek, obviously, but Debo should be in the MVP conversation because without Debo, this offense is one of the worst in football. This offense is really Debo or
with
bust.
feeding Debo 10 to 12 times a game is he has not ball security issues, but I don't know what you would call it. He has a trouble holding on to the ball. So it's all the more reason to get someone else involved. And real quick, the Niners offense right now is ranked 18th in yards and 20th in points, which is just about par for the course for Kyle Shanahan's career. Not great.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I did.
Don't trade him. Don't trade him. Work it out. Work it out.
They have to work it out. There's no excuses for not working it out because then it's just another draft pick that you've misevaluated. You've made the incorrect decision, and at some point, I think that Kyle Shanahan has not been really held accountable as much for the 49ers misses. But when you look at free agency, how many big free agents have they signed that have not worked out? You go down the list. Jet McKinnon, has that worked out? Big Weston Richburg. I mean, it did work out, but he got hurt. But Big Weston Richburg, the reason the Giants didn't offer him a contract is because he was injured with the Giants. You go down the list. You just keep going down the list with their free agent signings, their draft picks, their personnel decisions have not been good.
Real quick, I just want to go back to Aiyuk and then we're going to move on. I think there's a pattern of Kyle Shanahan being way too hard on his top skill player draft picks. Running backs, Trey Sermon, wide receivers, Aiyuk, Pettis. Why is he so hard on them? I think part of him feels that if those guys don't work out and he can make it work with a hardworking undrafted free agent, it looks good for him. It proves that he's a good coach and that his system is king. So he's not necessarily like, man, I got to make it work with Brandon Aiyuk. If Aiyuk doesn't rise to his level of professionalism and in meetings or practice, it allows Kyle to,
Then why draft people in the first round? Just trade all your first round picks and do what the Rams do.
Because he makes bad decisions, Vish.
You know what the funny thing is? I was watching the Rams. I've been watching the Rams all season, mostly to watch Matthew Stafford. But I was looking at a lot of these Rams middle round draft picks, with less draft picks. The Rams have more hits than the 49ers. They have more hits when you look at guys who have been producing for them, like a Jordan Fuller, a Terrell Lewis. You go down the list and you look at a lot of these guys, Van Jefferson, that the Rams have drafted in the middle rounds. Darrell Henderson, he looks good. Cam Akers looked like a star last year. It's been better than the 49ers who have not been unconventional, trading all their picks and going at guys. And then you add in the fact that their first round pick the last 2 years is a top 2 corner in football and Jalen Ramsey. I mean, there's really no words for this.
All right, let's answer a few questions. Big Dad says, get Shanahan a real GM with power. Not too many coaches can run a whole franchise. This got his dad fired also. Start Lance, please. Yeah, Kyle has – is Belichick the only coach in the league who has more power than Kyle?
I think so.
Yeah, that's a problem right there. I mean, he has more power than Andy Reid. Maybe Andy Reid.
Because, Sean Payton. No, Sean Payton, Mickey Lucas.
They actually have – he has more power than Sean Payton. That's an issue. And if he can't fall back – and accept a lesser role, then that's an issue too. Do you sense 2014 vibes? Harbs gave up and got fired. Do y'all sense the same thing? Kyle didn't want Jimmy and now won't bench him. He mad, bro.
No, the 2014 team was 6-4.
That's a good point. They finished. It was after they lost at home on Thanksgiving that it all fell apart, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Marcus. Speed round here. Jalen Moore, Elijah Mitchell look like studs. What do you think of Jalen Moore?
I didn't watch.
I'm
not sure.
Real quick, couple more. Went to the game, left with the flu. I'm sorry. This was when teams have too much talent and still lose. What does that say about the coach? Are we too close as fans to admit that our team is a bad team? I think everyone sort of sees it now. I think the fact that happened is kind of reminding me of like No one ever noticed that Matt Patricia was kind of struggling in Detroit because no one follows the Lions. But then when they got smoked last year on Thanksgiving, everyone's like, hold on a second. This is outrageous. When you lose like that on national television, all of a sudden Colin Cowherd's like, wait a second. Was I wrong about Colin? Yeah, you were wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Because at this point, I think the excuses that people have afforded Kyle Shanahan, and I'm a symptom of this issue. I've afforded him the quarterback excuse, the injury excuse, all of that. This year, those excuses don't exist. You don't like Jimmy Garoppolo? Don't play him.
Yeah. 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 And the thing is, if you were playing Trey and you were 2-4 right now, people would give you more understanding and benefit of the doubt, I think. The main thread says, rip the scab off, play the young guy, trade away the vets to get back some of what it took to get Trey. Give the fans something
I
to
think
hope
the
for.
main threat, I talked about this on Spaces. The next move for the 49ers is to be honest with themselves. With this division, you are not turning around 2-4. You still got to play Arizona once. You still got to play the Rams twice. You're likely going 0-3 in both of those games. Be honest with yourself. And you have a lot of good veteran players on your roster that teams would trade late. Contenders would trade late round picks because they're also cheap on 1-year contracts and they could make an immediate impact. The K'Wan Williams, DJ Jones. It's time to ship them off, get a 5th round, 6th round, 4th round pick, and try and recoup assets to build something for Trey Lance in 2022.